Euphoria is a show that may have started off with some potential, but its fall off was actually inevitable if you think about it. I mean, it feels like a record to be watched after just 4 episodes, but there are things inherent to the show itself that make us that it could never be one of the greats. To start with, the show takes itself way too seriously regarding the scope of its conflicts and characters. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being a drama. In fact, some of the best shows have nothing funny going on with them. But the thing is, the show tries to be artsy with its angst in a way that just feels too forced to be taken seriously. Maybe this is just a symptom of teen shows, and I have to get over it because I'm a grown-ass man who doesn't have to deal with high school drama anymore. But when looking at the dilemmas with some of the main characters, it's like either entirely their fault or their own idiocy made everything 10 times worse. One notable exception is that one drug dealer Fez. He has like the most interesting story, and he's relegated to just a minor character. Also, despite being someone who willingly sells poison to his own community, he actually comes across as one of the most likable characters. Yeah, it's his choice to not apply himself and become a drug dealer, but at the end of the day, he still has empathy for other people and tries to steer his own customers from what he thinks they can't handle. This combination of him being flawed enough to actually sell drugs while sympathizable enough to have a good heart makes him actually interesting to watch compared to the pushovers and outright psychopaths the show forces him to share oxygen with. At its core, the show's plot is simple enough. We follow a girl named Rue, who's a recovering drug addict. Her life is all messed up because she has a whole bunch of mental disorders and now only has one parent, so she turns to drugs to make her feel better, which so far is so reasonable. I don't really have anything against her backstory. What I have a problem with is her actual story. When she's not being useful, trying to find out how the main antagonist is victimizing her girlfriend, she's basically doing nothing of relevance, and Omega is simping over her unlikable girlfriend. Unfortunately for us viewers, that useful time is only like 15% of the show. Once again, this is the main character we're talking about. Said girlfriend is the new girl in town, and they met at a party that was being hosted by a washed-up 18 athletes, but we'll get to that later. For now, we'll focus on the girlfriend named Jules. She's even lamer than Rue, so on top of doing basically nothing throughout the show like her wife, she also clearly doesn't value Rue the way Rue values her. Throughout this series, Rue is constantly forced to bend the knee to Jules, cause she's clearly more desperate for her interaction than the other way around. I'm not mad at Jules for being an asshole. Having flawed characters is way more fun to watch. I'm mad at the show for treating Jules like some sort of protagonist. The only people to call her out on her shit are Rue, aka her wife, and the villain of the series. Likewise, the only person to actually victimize her and make her life difficult is also the villain. By framing the story in this context, coupled with her sob story of feeling out of place as a child and misgendered by society, it's clear the show's trying to make me root for her, but why should I? I mean, this isn't to say Jules doesn't care about Rue at all. Like, she did try to get Rue to stop doing drugs, but the rest of the show is spent by her flaunting other relationship in front of her, despite clearly knowing how much of a hard-on Rue gets when she's around. Said relationships is with a guy that managed to catfish her in the late 10s, like she's making us look bad. He's the villain I've been talking about, and his name is Nate. This guy's like the worst character in the show in every way. He's mad because as a kid, he got footage of his dad being a you-know-what with people that are exclusively male, feminine males, or trans women. This caused the young Nate's brain to short circuits, because he's also a jock who was trained by his father to be like that. So the thought of a manly man like his dad also being into men made him conflicted, so he takes his anger out on the world. He was also like the most popular kid in school, because the writers still believe that the stereotypical jock and cheerleader couple that rule the school is an actual real thing. I mean, yeah, athletes tend to be more popular than geek-ass niggas who spend their entire life playing video games and leaving comments online, but social hierarchies in schools barely exist, especially by senior and junior years. Everyone just has their own friend groups, and some people are more cool with a lot of people than others. It's that simple. To be honest, the show isn't that OD with the king of the school angle, because at least most of the school secretly hates him. But in real life though, if they really hated him, they probably wouldn't be constantly going to the parties he throws and fucking with the lame-ass events that his family organizes. But speaking of parties, that same night Rue met Jules is also where Nate met Jules. After his ex tried to make him jealous by being with a college rando, Nate tried to essay Jules or something, so she had to out-crazy him. So basically L meets L, right? But it turns out that Jules and Nate actually have a lot more to be beefing over. Like mentioned earlier, Nate's out as a you-know-what, and it just so happens one of the you-know-who's he ended up leaking with was actually Jules. And of course, Nate knows this, because he's a sicko stalker who keeps track of everyone his father dicks down. So with this information, does Nate either A, mind his own business, B, report his father to the authorities, or C, pretend to be a different jock so they can get news from Jules they can use as CP to blackmail her, even though she wasn't going to reveal that she was with his dad anyway, because that already would have put her in jeopardy. If you guessed A or B, you need to stop sharing drugs with Rue, because that would have made too much sense for a show that's built on inserting contrived plots. So yeah, the character's whole deal is that he's a super psycho, whose existence is to make the world a worse place. But unlike the psychos in actually good shows, this guy has very little motivation and very little room for the audience to believe someone in his position will go this far. Like, he's a high school jock who got traumatized by seeing his dad pipe some boys, not a militia leader from a war-torn country or something. The lengths his character goes border on cartoonishly evil at times. Like after his ex made him jealous and then told him later that she was drunk on the night of, instead of just punching the guy out like a normal meat brain jock, he breaks into the house, beats him to almost pack status, tells him that he R-worded his girlfriend, and possibly R-words the man himself if the show is open to interpretation. Then he uses the guy's name, Tyler, to engage in the catfish described earlier. As if this turn of events couldn't get any less easy to believe, it turns out that after Nate and his ex Maddie got back together, in order to cover up the bruise he gave her, he goes back to Tyler's house and blackmails him, telling 12 that he's the one who touched her, and blackmails Jules into testifying that she saw it. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people this twisted in real life. What I'm saying is, I don't get how this show wants me to take this dynamic seriously. As far as Tyler knows, Nate's family doesn't run the country. So what's stopping him from purchasing a pole and mixing Nate with the gas? What's stopping the writers from shifting focus more to Fez and the actually evil drug dealer he works for, whose evil actually makes sense? Because he's a drug dealer. Also speaking of Fez, Rue tries to get him to scare Nate to leaving Jules alone, and because he's a sweetheart, he ends up doing it.
Go fuck yourself.
Listen, bruh. All I'm saying, you keep fucking with Rue and her friends, and I'ma kill you. It's gonna be some boy.
But Nate isn't going, so he just snitches on him to 12, despite Fez also being his plug, so that was funny. But aside from the main plots of Nate bullying Jules and the entire town for 8 episodes straight, there's also some other characters the show makes us watch. First up is one of Nate's friends, who's some college jock named McKay. He was raised to be a football player from a young age, just to find out he's in the bottom percentile of his college team, so it's up for him. His whole story arc is dealing with the frustration of knowing you worked your whole life for nothing, which sounds good on paper if it weren't for the fact that he has the personality of a wet doorknob. He doesn't really do anything aside from get bullied and peer pressured by a nigga 2 grades below him, and got violated by a bunch of guys who try to take his manhood under the cloak of hazing. I guess his other plot is that he has issues with his girlfriend Cassie, cause she's owned by the pavement, and he's embarrassed by it. Then he maybe gets her pregnant or something, whatever. And in order to loop it back to the main plot, her little sister Lexi is Rue's best friend, who's even more of a simp than Rue herself. While Rue is thirsting after Jules, who's out texting jocks and going on random adventures with tryhard arts college rejects, Lexi is thirsting after Rue, who spends half the season actively ignoring her. At least with Rue's tier 3 behavior, the affection is somewhat reciprocated. Like Jules clearly has fun around her and gives her attention. Not only does Rue spend most of the season not giving Lexi the time of day, but when she does come around and see the value in the only person that actually tries to reach out to her, she basically treats her like a sidekick and still meet writes Jules in her presence.
She's super fucking sensitive, she's very forgiving, and she's basically the most wonderful fucking person on the planet.
I think the show's going for the angle that Leslie wants to be more than just friends with Rue, and looking at Zendaya, I don't really blame her. But at the same time, I would appreciate it if they actually gave her a spinal column, or at the very least, have her actually do something in the plot. She's essentially a super friend-zone doormat, who is there because they need to fill some quota for the ensemble cast. It's also kind of hard to watch, because she's like the nicest character in the show. The last person we have to worry about is some loser named Kat. Remember when I said Nate was the worst character in the series? Well, he's facing some stiff competition from Kat. In fact, I might like her even less, because not only does she have the lamest plot in the show, she's like the least entertaining to watch. At least Nate's deep-only Tyler was funny. Kat being a tryhard is just annoying. Her boohoo story is that she used to look normal, then after one vacation became fat, and her boyfriend left her, and this caused her to go to the worst corners of the internet to become as unlikable as she is, somehow topping Nate in the worthless backstory division. So in the painful season we're forced to watch of her, she lives at a tape of her having sex gets leaked, and she uses it to leverage her reputation among paypigs online who make our species look bad. Also, Kat keeps blowing up some rando kid that's actually interested in her for some reason, but just like the viewers, she can't believe it, so she preemptively does him dirty so that he can't victimize her or something. She also treats her best friend Maddie like ass, and they have a falling out over it. But if the show wants to pretend that Maddie's a star cheerleader with a star jock as her boyfriend, then why was a fat loser like Kat her best friend in the first place? And this leads us to the last problem with the show I want to talk about, its ending. While the show was somewhat entertaining in the first 5 episodes, in spite of its lame characters, it completely falls apart in the last 3. In particular, the finale is where things just get stupid, so it's the night of the prom. And it turns out all the girls in the series are one big friend group. Like what? Aren't these the same hoes that didn't even acknowledge Rue's existence after she almost sent herself to the next dimension, and now they're all buddies? But okay, you don't gotta hang out with everyone you're cool with all the time. Around the climax of the episode, Rue confronts Nate on being a threat to civilization, and he actually managed to make her look bad by pointing out the obvious that Jules isn't really checking for her. Then Jules tries to get Rue to run away with her, and even though it was Rue's idea in the first place, she quickly changed her mind because she had the brainstem to understand that it was an idiotic idea, so Jules just ends up abandoning her. The season ends with an unwelcome song and dance number that fits very little with the rest of the show, and gets rid of what little part of me took the season seriously, and also ends off in a lame cliffhanger on whether or not Rue OD'd. But wait a minute, the show was already renewed for a new season around the time the episode aired, so we knew they weren't done. I'm gonna need shows to stop pulling these stunts, or at least make the renewals a secret, cause I have no reason to anticipate anything other than safe recoveries. When the actors are main characters with extended contracts, some other stuff happens, like Cassie getting an abortion, Fez robbing someone, a cat making his right with that one guy, but I don't care, and you shouldn't either. The bottom line is, the show will be better as a comedy or something, cause at least then, it would make sense when I laugh at it.